If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with the final episode of Under the Radar for 2023, and this is a special, somewhat lengthy one, as I will be briefly reviewing 10 big albums that I missed that came out in 2023. I missed a lot of these albums either because I didn't know about them, or I was away on vacation and I didn't get the time to check them out when I probably should have. But here I am making it up to you guys. I picked 10 albums that either friends of mine told me about or ones that I wanted to check out but was away on a trip or something. But I'm here to talk about them now. So, we're going to kick things off with actually 2 albums in one quick review, and that is the dueling offering from Ulthar with Anthronomicon and Helionomicon. So these both came out back on February 17th, and this is a band that I've heard a little bit of hype around. Like, they're seen as like one of the forerunners of American Blackened death metal almost. And I can certainly see why, like, all throughout these 2 albums. Now, I'm including them both in one review because while they're 2 separate albums, they came out on the same day and also are very connected to each other. I mean, hell, look at the album covers. If you put them together, it creates the same story, or whatever the fuck it is. But musically across the board on both albums, particularly on Anthronomicon, you get all these awesome death metal triplet chugs, but lots of black metal tremolo riffs going on. Great groove pockets, the ambience and atmosphere is very cosmic forward. The guitar tone, I think, was pretty gritty on Anthronomicon. Also, on both albums, the bass tone is very grisly, which I love. But you do get these like nice pockets of melody peppered in all throughout. Even like little odd time shifts to kind of bring off a little bit of a progressive songwriting influence, I should say. Thrashy at times, and then even on Anthronomicon in particular, even little hints of doom. But then on Helionomicon, which was only 2 tracks, which are both the title tracks on both albums, Anthronomicon and Helionomicon, both 20-minute songs, they're able to pack in some cool, clean melodies, slightly crunchier riffs on Helionomicon, gets a bit more dissonant, definitely more progressive, as these are 2 very long tracks, almost gets rather epic, and it might draw out some of the ambient parts, maybe a little bit too long, and that's really the one thing that holds it back, but the breakdowns that you get on, especially Helionomicon, are quite brutal for the most part. So overall, if you are a fan as far as like black metal bands, Shooter, and early Darkthrone, there's a little bit of that on here, but for death metal, I feel this is more closer to modern bands like Blood Incantation and Tomb Mold. So if you like those bands, you will dig these 2 albums. So combining both, I give them 9 out of 10. This was a thrill to listen to 2 wild Blackened death metal albums. Moving on to the 3rd album I'm going to be talking about, and that is Church of Misery with Born Under a Bad Sign. This came out on June 16th, so a big jump as far as the albums I'm talking about. But Church of Misery, so this band I heard courtesy of Necrotic Nick from Thralls of Metal. I saw him review this, and this is Japanese stoner metal, doom metal, pretty much a hybrid of both. And yeah, the concepts they go for are all about historical serial killers and just writing these like groovy stoner riffs, but also some big doom moments that pop up. And I like how they implement like news clips about these serial killers that they're singing about in these songs, but the guitar tones and the riffs are chunky and just filled with a lot of, I wouldn't say like fuzz, but it feels fuzzy a little bit, which is pretty cool. Nice swinging grooves to kind of give you that like Black Sabbath influence that they're going for. Very doomy, but with those like stoner cannabis vibes going on within some of the riffs. Gets really bluesy at times. They even sound like they go for like jam sessions on some parts on these songs. Love the old school influence that they pop in here, and even occasionally they speed things up a little bit to kind of add a little bit more aggression, I would say. But overall, if you are a fan of Sleep, Cathedral, Electric Wizard, Black Sabbath, you will dig this. I certainly did. I also give this 9 out of 10. I thought for a stoner doom band, which I'm kind of somewhat picky about stoner metal. Doom metal I typically will enjoy depending on the band. This was some awesome stuff. I should check out more from this band. But now moving on to the 4th album, and this is one of those that I'm surprised I didn't touch on, but again, this is one of them like hype train kind of situations, and I was hesitant to check it out, but I checked it out, and that is Blackbraid with Blackbraid 2. This came out on July 7th, and of course this is a New York one-man atmospheric melodic black metal project, and holy shit, for one guy, the man's super fucking talented. I forget his name. I know it's John something, but he's a super talented musician. Like, he's doing everything. Guitars, bass, drums, and the vocals, and all the ambient stuff going on. But just, wow. What a journey this album was. Like, it is long. It's over an hour. But, holy shit, does he know how to write riffs and melodies and just kind of take you on an adventure a lot of these times. Like, these tasteful acoustic interludes, classic black metal tremolos that feel very much like second wave black metal, like Norwegian and Swedish black metal. It's very melodic. There's even some really nice grooves that go on from time to time. You even get like Blackened triplets that almost feel like Darkthrone and Bathory to some extent. It gets really epic at times, thrashy at times. Occasionally we'll get doomy and even showcase some classic metal influence at times. Flutes, which add a bit of a folk vibe to it. And also John ends off with an awesome cover of Bathory's A Fine Day to Die. Kind of a more sinister approach to that song, which is really cool. So overall, as far as any complaints, really don't have really any at all, apart from the fact that it might be a bit long. But if you are a fan of bands like Dissection, Agalok, Mugwa, and Uada, definitely check this out. I get the hype behind it now. I gotta check out the first album. I give this 9 out of 10 as well. And, well, spoiler alert, it's gonna be on my year-end list, so just be on the lookout for that pretty freaking soon. But yeah. And after that little cut, because I had to scroll on my computer over there to look at the rest of my list, next up we get to Sylosis with A Sign of Things to Come. This came out on September 8th, so actually this and the next album both came out on September 8th, so now we're getting into like later releases that I just missed out on. Now Sylosis has always been a band I've always kind of escaped from, or it's escaped me, but they're listed as like metalcore / melodic death metal / thrash metal, but this album, I just could not get into this really hardly at all. Starts off a bit thrashy, and there's like cool mid-tempo grooves in the beginning and hardcore breakdowns, but that's just pretty much the only positives I have, is that they do some alright breakdowns, but apart from that, and even like the shredding leads, and the production, it was solid, but nothing that I cared for. The vocals was one of the big things that kind of ruined this album for me. Like, the high cleans I didn't like. The low cleans were pretty good, but for the most part, I was just kind of left bored with this album. Like, it just, nothing stood out at all about it. It just kind of went, like, almost every song kind of followed the same mold. Well, the first track had occasional thrash moments, but then after that, most of it's more that, like, bland, groove metal vibe. This is almost about, like, the latest Evil album. However, that Evil album at least has moments. This has none of that. So, I mean, if you like the new Evil album, or even, like, recent Trivium albums, Darkest Hour and The Haunted, you might find something you might like on here, and that's kind of stretching it. I'm giving this 5.5 out of 10. I didn't really like this album really at all. So, yeah. But moving on to the good stuff again, we get to Uada with Crepuscule. I'm just going to go with that. Natura. This also came out on September 8th. Now, Uada has been one of them modern black metal bands that I keep hearing about, but I've never checked out until now. I get the hype behind this band now. Like, holy shit, there's a lot going on with this album in particular. You get your dark tremolo riffs, but they're very melodic, very much in the vein of Dissection, which is, I think, the most comparable band to Uada, I would say. But it's quite fast. Like, holy shit, it gets really, really fast. The vocals are absolutely wild. They kind of remind me a little bit of Attila from Mayhem a little bit, which I love Attila's vocals. I know some people don't. I do, so whatever. But I also love this production. Like, it's gritty, but still well mixed. But one thing that really stood out here is just how somber it gets at times, where it just makes you almost want to cry at certain points with how these melodies get. You get occasional doomy breaks, little hints of classic metal pop in and out, some nice triplet swings, and even touches of groove. So, I guess the only thing I could really knock about this album is that I saw this get compared to Blackbraid. I don't think it quite matched up to the Blackbraid album, but it's still very, very good. So if you are a fan of Blackbraid, Dissection, Mugwa, and even another Swedish band, Dawn, you'll probably dig this. I certainly did. I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10 for this one. I thought this was really damn good. Next up, we get to one that I was curious about, but didn't check out until recently. Flesher with Tales of Grotesque Demise. This came out on September 15th, and this is an Indiana-based death metal band that features a former member of Demiricus, who was also in Skeleton Witch for a little bit. So this, I wasn't sure what I was going to get myself into with this album, but holy shit does this album have a lot of cool old school death metal going for it. Raw production, which is really nice. It's just flat out brutal across the board on this entire album. It's one of the more brutal albums I have heard in 2023. Glorious breakdowns with hardcore grooves to kind of give that, like, classic, almost New York death metal vibe going on for it, like little bits of suffocation, you could say. Lots of cool dissonant melodies come up here, nasty tremolo riffs and slams. Occasionally, like especially towards the end of the album, it gets a little bit more on the doom side, but there's also some of these great bolt thrower double-time stomps peppered in all throughout the album. So, if you are a fan of bands like Bolt Thrower, Jungle Rot, Frozen Soul, and even Mortician for the brutality going on, you will dig it. I did. 8.5 out of 10 for this one as well. And after that cut, we got just 3 more albums to talk about. Next, we have Gravesend with Gowanus Death Stomp. This came out on October 27th, and this is a New York-based black metal grindcore hybrid band. I heard about this one also through Thralls of Metal because I watched that review, and also produced by Arthur Risk, and I will always want to check out anything Arthur Risk touches because he's such an awesome producer and musician. So yeah, this for Blackened Grind or grindy black metal, whatever you want to call it. There is some awesome riffs going on here, even though pretty much all these songs are really short, like between 2 to 3 minutes long. Holy shit, they know how to pack a lot of gross riffs all throughout. Awesome grooves come in here to kind of give off some death metal vibes here and there. Triplet chugs even pop up, but you get a lot of old school extreme metal on here, like especially Celtic Frost, I would say, is a big band that kind of gets peppered in here and there when it comes down to some of these riffs. Some double time stomps, even some of that like punky D beat going on, fierce black metal tremolo riffs, and it's just all out, just absolutely misanthropic in these lyrics, and just the songs in general, they feel rather misanthropic. So if you are a fan of, I would say, Celtic Frost, Dark Throne, Anal Nathrak, and even Nazem for the grindy side, you would probably like a lot of this, and I did. This is also an 8.5 out of 10. This was really, really cool. Next up, the penultimate album for this final Under the Radar episode is Black Knife with Baby Eater Witch. This is a Kentucky-based Blackened crossover thrash metal band, I'd say is the best way to talk about them. And actually, not long after this album came out, they broke up, so R.I.P. to them. But yeah, this album, it's definitely energetic. It's got a lot of like that punk energy going on here. Thrashy riffs, classic metal chops, very, very punky, like I said, but you get those Blackened vibes, D beats, even blast beats, and rare guitar solos. So yeah, this was more kind of like let's go and have a drink kind of vibe going on with this album, but with those evil overtones. So it definitely kind of fits in that realm of like first wave or proto black metal, but also like speed metal and like some of the crossover thrash bands of the 80s like SOD and maybe even like later DRI, you could say. Or most particularly, I would say like Midnight's a good comparison, and even Toxic Holocaust. But for me, this album, it just kind of felt a little bit weird to me. Like, I don't know what it was about it. I wasn't fully on board with it. Like, I feel like they kind of repeated a lot of the same tropes on this album. And while there are tropes I do like, I feel like there are other bands out there that execute this style a little bit better, I would say. But if you are a fan of Discharge, Midnight, Municipal Waste, Toxic Holocaust, you'll find some stuff on here. It's a decent album. I'll give it 7.5 out of 10, and unfortunately we're probably never going to see this band again because they broke up just like a month ago. So, yeah. But now on to the final album for Under the Radar this year, and that is Angra with Cycles of Pain. Of course, these Brazilian power progressive metalers just keep pumping out material, and of course I think this is either the second or the third album now with Fabio Leone, formerly of Rhapsody of Fire, on vocals. But this album, like, holy shit, there's so much happening here. It's really epic, just like most power metal bands are, but they do it right. But there's awesome groove going on here, which is not something you would typically think of with power metal. You don't think of grooves in power metal. You think like D beats and like sped up stuff, like they speed up everything. But no, they throw in some grooves, classic heavy metal gallops, very much in the vein of like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, maybe even like early Halloween, I could say. Lots of great tasteful acoustics and strings. Like, they know how to pepper in the symphonic element and have it complement the metal that's going on here. Even blast beats show up on this, which again, blast beats and power metal don't sound like it should work, but it does here. It gets even thrashy at times. Of course, the guitar solos filled with shred and melody. After all, Kiko, who recently just departed Megadeth, came out of this band. It even gets slightly chuggy at times, the bass work on here, and like even the production is great, and the mix is amazing because you could hear the bass, and even the bass has several moments of shine on here. The drum work is fantastic. Harmonies are tasteful. Even one song gets carried by the bass and even gets very proggy in how lavish it gets. Even a couple songs, they kind of bring in almost like salsa-esque acoustics and clean guitars and percussion to even add more to that prog flair with odd time shifts and great piano work. Maybe the only complaints I got is another case of it kind of feeling a bit long in the tooth, and then also they might kind of go back to this Angra well a little bit too often, but still really good stuff. If you are a fan of, I would say, Queensryche, Rhapsody of Fire, Symphony X, and Camelot, you will like a lot of this. I thought this was pretty good. 8 out of 10 for me. Pretty good stuff. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes Under the Radar for 2023. Holy shit, I think I went through more albums this year than I did last year on this series, and last year I covered a lot. I'm thinking about possibly cutting down on the amount of things I talk about on Under the Radar for 2024. So I think what I will probably do is limit myself to only 3 albums per episode, depending on what all comes out. If there's only 2, I'll talk about 2. Because starting in 2024, you're going to get 3 full-length reviews. So you'll get reviews on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, with Under the Radar being out on Tuesdays, as per usual. So that's kind of the new format going forward, starting in 2024 when it comes to reviews, as best as I can. So thank you guys for watching this. What was your favorite album out of these 10 that I talked about? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.